In January 1993, 16-year-old Claire Tiltman left her home in Greenhithe, Kent, to visit a friend. She never made it. Choosing to take a shortcut through a disused chalk quarry, an alleyway she had walked before, she was brutally attacked and stabbed over 9 times in a frenzied and seemingly motiveless assault. The sheer violence of the attack shocked the local community. There was no evidence of sexual assault, no robbery, and no clear reason for such a level of brutality. Claire, a bright and kind teenager with her whole life ahead of her, became the center of one of the UK's most chilling unsolved murder cases. Claire Tiltman was the only child of Cliff and Linda Tiltman, devoted parents who lived in Woodward Terrace, in the quiet parish of Stone, near Greenhithe, Kent. Claire had just turned 16 a few days earlier, celebrating her birthday on January 1st, 1993, full of excitement and plans for the future. Just 4 days later, on the evening of January 18th, her life was brutally cut short in a savage and senseless attack that shocked the nation. At the time of her death, Claire had recently completed her Bronze Duke of Edinburgh Award at a local fire station, an experience her classmates said she had absolutely loved. Inspired by that, she dreamed of one day becoming a firefighter, a goal that perfectly reflected her brave, caring, and community-minded spirit. Claire was a student at Dartford Grammar School for Girls, known for her kindness, hard work, and quiet determination. Claire Tiltman had been studying for her GCSEs when she was murdered. On that fateful evening, she left her home at around 6 p.m. to walk less than a mile to a friend's house on Riverview Road. As she walked along London Road, she was seen crossing just past the roundabout zebra crossing. Moments later, she entered a narrow alleyway on the left-hand side, a shortcut commonly used by locals. It was there that Claire was viciously attacked and stabbed 9 times in what detectives would later describe as a frenzied and unprovoked assault. Claire Tiltman's body was discovered shortly after the attack by a passing motorist who noticed something unusual in the alleyway off Cedar Road, near London Road in Greenhithe. The man, whose name was not publicly disclosed in official police reports, spotted her lying in the alleyway, badly injured and bleeding heavily. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the man immediately called emergency services. When paramedics and police arrived on the scene, they found Claire had been stabbed 49 times in a frenzied assault, mostly in the chest and back. Despite the rapid response, she had already succumbed to her injuries by the time help arrived. Her wounds were so severe that there was no chance of survival, even with immediate medical attention. The passerby who found her played a critical role in alerting authorities quickly, ensuring that police could begin their investigation without delay. However, due to the lack of eyewitnesses and the brutal speed of the attack, the trail quickly went cold, leading to over 2 decades of unanswered questions. Following the discovery of Claire Tiltman's body on the night of January 18, 1993, police launched a major murder investigation. The brutal nature of the crime, 9 stab wounds in a quiet residential alleyway, shocked both the local community and the country at large. Detectives believed early on that this was not a robbery or sexual assault, but a deliberate, frenzied attack, possibly committed by someone with a violent history. Kent police began interviewing hundreds of local residents and students from Claire's school, hoping someone might have seen something. They conducted house-to-house inquiries, searched for potential weapons, and requested help from the public. But despite their efforts, there were no witnesses to the attack, and very little forensic evidence was available at the time. DNA technology was still developing in 1993. Investigators reconstructed Claire's final walk, tracked her known movements, and appealed on local and national television for tips. A reward was offered, and her murder featured on programs like Crime Watch UK. But no suspect was arrested, and the case began to grow cold. Claire Tiltman was laid to rest on February 1st, 1993, exactly 2 weeks after her murder. Her funeral was held in her home community of Stone, Kent, and it was attended by a large number of mourners, family, friends, schoolmates, teachers, and locals, all devastated by the brutal and senseless loss of a young girl with so much promise. The funeral was deeply emotional, marked by sorrow and disbelief. Claire's classmates from Dartford Grammar School for Girls attended in uniform, and many brought flowers, letters, and personal tributes. The entire community came together in mourning, and in quiet rage that the person responsible had not been found. Among the mourners was her eventual killer. For more than 2 decades, her murder remained unsolved. Despite extensive police investigations and public appeals, no one was charged. Claire was the only child of Cliff and Linda Tiltman, who lived in Woodward Terrace, Stone, Kent. After Claire's brutal murder on January 18, 1993, her parents were devastated, but they became relentless campaigners, never giving up hope that the killer would one day be brought to justice. They appeared frequently in the press, on television, and at memorial events, keeping Claire's case in the public eye. Mrs. Tiltman said, "You look around and you hope that it's someone you don't know, but we don't know. That person could have been there. I hope that they weren't. I'll never ever forgive that person for whatever reason. That person's got to be caught." For years, they worked closely with police, attended cold case briefings, and made emotional public appeals asking for information. Linda Tiltman was deeply affected by the loss of her daughter and channeled her grief into campaigning for the case to remain active. She suffered from cancer in later years. She died in 2008, still without knowing who killed her daughter. Her death added a tragic layer to the case. A mother died never seeing justice for her only child. Cliff, like Lynn, continued the fight after his wife's death. He was determined to keep Claire's name alive. He gave numerous interviews, urging police to pursue every suspect and thanking the public for their continued support. Tragically, Cliff Tiltman died in 2012, just 2 years before Claire's killer, Colin Ash Smith, was finally convicted. Cliff died of natural causes, and like Lynn, never saw justice served. During Claire's Tiltman funeral, among the mourners was her eventual killer, Colin Ash Smith. At the time, he wasn't on the public radar. He was not linked to Claire's case. He was simply seen as a local, the 22-year-old son of a respected former local counselor. His presence at the funeral seemed like that of a grieving member of the community. He lived with his parents in Milton Street, Swanscombe, and even played pool occasionally with the teenager, and subsequently attended her funeral. But years later, investigators would confirm that he had attended, a disturbing detail that would reveal itself as part of his psychological need for control. This kind of behavior isn't uncommon among certain killers. Inserting themselves into the mourning process or investigation gives them a twisted sense of power. Ash Smith was no exception. Colin Ash Smith hovered constantly at the edges of suspicion. He was known to police even at the time of Claire's murder, not only because he lived locally, but because of his disturbing history. Ash Smith owned a range of weapons, including up to 30 flick, sheath, and butterfly knives, which he often carried with him, the court heard. He also had an air pistol, air rifle, crossbow, and imitation magnum. Claire was his second victim. He was jailed in 1996 for knife attacks on 2 other women, which took place either side of Claire's murder and to which he pleaded guilty. In December 1988, he abducted, attempted to rape and strangle, and repeatedly stabbed a woman in Swanscombe. In October 1995, he stabbed another woman more than 14 times just yards from the alleyway in London Road, where Claire was murdered 2.5 years earlier. Both women survived. The day after Claire's murder, Ash Smith phoned the police with a false alibi, giving a hopeless description of a man on a zebra crossing, which was a few hundred yards up the road from the scene. Nigel Pilkington, head of the complex casework unit for the Crown Prosecution Service Southeast, said, "The information is useless, and he's not a suspect because he's a man of good character at that time." Ash Smith had called, Mr. Pilkington said, because he feared that he or his distinctive souped-up white Ford Capri car had been spotted. He changed his alibi a few days later, giving a different account of what he had seen. Years later, when he was in Wakefield prison, Ash Smith once again made reference to the zebra crossing in a conversation with fellow prisoner Stephen Dubois. Reading his police statement to the court, Dubois said his friend had told of his Ash Smiths passing someone on a zebra crossing, snapping and attacking them. He assumed the attack was the reason Ash Smith was in jail, but there were no zebra crossings near the sites of the 1988 or 1995 attacks, and Claire would have used a zebra crossing shortly before she was murdered. Mr. Pilkington said it was a very compelling piece of evidence that had come directly from Ash Smith. Ash Smith wrote down details of his successful attacks and his other plots in diaries called assault plans. They were discovered in his bedroom following his arrest in 1995 and accurately described the 1988 attack and a Swanscombe break-in offense. They also listed other planned attacks which he never fulfilled. Ash Smith had thought for so many years that he had got away with that brutal murder, said Detsupt Vinson. This is a very, very dangerous man. If you want to look at evil, then I suggest you look at Colin Ash Smith, he said. The confession was the key piece of evidence that had eluded detectives for so long. Ash Smith's admission provided the missing link that allowed police to focus their investigation on him. But the case didn't end there. As detectives began to dig deeper into Ash Smith's background, they discovered even more chilling details. Ash Smith's parents came forward, revealing that they had destroyed crucial evidence shortly after Claire's murder. They admitted to burning clothes that had bloodstains on them and disposing of a knife that they believed could be linked to the crime. The investigation now had undeniable proof that Ash Smith had not only committed the murder, but his own family had helped cover it up. Ash Smith's chilling behavior and the extent of his violent tendencies were now clear. His family's involvement in hiding evidence only added to the shock and horror of the case. It was evident that Ash Smith was a predator who had carefully concealed his violent nature for years. Finally, in December 2014, Colin Ash Smith was brought to trial for the murder of Claire Tiltman. The case against him was built on his own confession, as well as the damning details he provided about the crime, details that only the killer would know. The trial revealed that Ash Smith had a history of violent attacks on women, and that his behavior had been escalating over the years. He had shown a disturbing fascination with knives and had a deep desire to control and harm his victims. The prosecution described the murder as frenzied and remorseless, and Ash Smith's actions were painted as those of a predatory killer with no empathy or remorse. The trial was a pivotal moment in the long fight for justice for Claire. The Tiltman family, who had spent over 2 decades waiting for this day, watched as Ash Smith was convicted of Claire's murder, but the victory was bittersweet. Claire's parents, Cliff and Linda Tiltman, had fought tirelessly for justice for their daughter. Tragically, neither of them lived to see the conviction. Linda Tiltman passed away from cancer in 2008, and Cliff Tiltman died in 2012, just 2 years before the conviction was secured. For them, justice came too late, but their dedication to seeking the truth helped ensure that Claire's killer would not go free. In the end, Colin Ash Smith was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 21 years. He was a dangerous man, one who had caused unimaginable pain and suffering to the Tiltman family and to the community as a whole. His violent tendencies had led him to commit a crime that shocked the nation, and it was only through the persistence of law enforcement, the public's help, and his own eventual confession that justice was finally achieved. Claire Tiltman's story serves as a chilling reminder of the unpredictability of violence. Her murder was senseless, and her killer was someone who had hidden his dark nature behind a seemingly normal facade. It also highlights the importance of never giving up on justice, no matter how long it takes. The legacy of Claire Tiltman lives on in the hearts of those who loved her, and in the pursuit of justice for victims of violent crime everywhere. Claire Tiltman's case is a heartbreaking reminder of how dangerous people can hide behind masks of normalcy aided by silence, denial, and sometimes even protection from their own families. Ash Smith had attacked before, and likely would have attacked again. It took 2 decades and the unwavering determination of Claire's parents to finally bring him to justice. Justice in the end did come, but it came far too late for Claire's family. So, do you think justice delayed is still justice, or is 21 years simply too long? If a parent helps cover up a crime like this, should they face the same punishment as the killer? How many more predators like Colin Ash Smith are hiding behind a respectable image today? Would this case have been solved faster if he hadn't come from a well-connected family? And what would you do if someone you love was capable of something like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If this case moved you, please like the video, subscribe for more deep dive true crime stories, and share it to keep Claire's story alive. Thanks for watching. See you in the next case.